I'm I'm just glad that I made that decision to take control of my life. I think that's the only way you can really have great success is by taking control of your own destiny. And looking back, there were a lot of times when I wanted to say things, but I would keep my mouth shut because I was so young, thinking that they would say, well, what does this little kid know? So I don't think that's the way to do it, but I'm glad that I did finally make that decision.
Janet Jackson is the youngest out of the 9 Jackson siblings. After hearing her demo for Lovely Is She, a song that Janet wrote for her sister LaToya's debut album, her father Joseph encouraged her to pursue a solo career of her own. At this point, Janet was a young actress on hit sitcoms such as Good Times, Different Strokes, and would eventually have a role in Fame. Janet wanted to go to college and study business law, but her dad wanted her to do music like the rest of the family.
Now that you're getting on in years, you're going to continue your education?
Yes, I want to go to college. I want to go to Pepperdine.
Really?
Yeah.
Janet signed to A&M Records and in 1982 released her self-titled debut album, Janet Jackson. Janet admits that she didn't even want her last name on the album and only wanted people to buy it if they liked the music and not because of her famous brothers. Then in 1984, she released her second album entitled Dream Street. She had no control. She didn't even get to pick the album cover. Joe picked the album cover, and it wasn't the cover she wanted. She didn't get to write any of the songs for the album. She sang what she was told to sing. Even though her brothers contributed to the Dream Street album by singing on Don't Stand Another Chance, and with Marlon writing and producing that song and another song on the album didn't do what Joe expected. Both albums had moderate success and would be considered flops in comparison to the Jacksons' record sales. Janet wanted to give up on music, and she wanted to escape her father's controlling ways. One way she did that was by secretly marrying James DeBarge when she was only 18 years old. After a year, the marriage was annulled due to his drug addiction. Janet not only parted from James, but she parted from her father in business. She fired him as her manager. At this point, her brothers had already fired him as their managers. Janet was the only one Joe had control over.
Do you have a manager that you tell what to do, or do you just come out with it all?
Well, actually, my father was my manager for 11 years.
So you couldn't
So,
tell him.
But we're not, he doesn't manage me anymore, so pretty much I'm doing everything on my own, along with John McClane, who's one of the vice presidents at A&M.
Catherine writes in her book, My Family, The Jacksons, that family friend and A&M Records senior vice president for A&R, John McClane, wanted to pair Janet with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis to produce her next album. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis were members of Minneapolis-based group The Time, and they were protégés of Prince. Catherine reveals that Joe did not want Janet to work with Jam and Lewis and told John McClane if it didn't work, he would backhand him. Joe had one rule for the producers, and that was to not make his daughter sound like Prince.
We had a meeting with Janet and her dad and everybody. And so her dad says, "Y'all are from Minneapolis." And we said, "Yeah." "Prince is from Minneapolis." I said, "Yeah." "Don't have my daughter sounding like Prince." "Okay, Mr. Jackson, you got it, but we got you."
Janet, for the first time, would be leaving her family in California, and in 1985, she and her friend Melanie Andrews went to Minneapolis to work with Jam and Lewis on her new album.
We didn't go in the studio for like the first 4 or 5 days. We just hung out, went to the movies, went to the club, went to the lake, and just hung out, right? And about 5 days in, she said, "When are we going to actually start working?" And we said, "Oh, we've been working." And we showed her the lyrics to Control. And she started reading the lyrics, and she said, "Well, wait, this is what we've been talking about." And we said, "Exactly." And she said, "So whatever we talk about, that's what we're going to write about?" Like, "Yeah." And she said, "Oh, okay." And it was like a light bulb went off in her head because nobody had ever asked her what she wanted to write about or sing about. Well, first of all, nobody asked her to write. Nobody asked her what she wanted to sing about. They just gave her songs. And we were like, no, you got to be part of the process here. And that's how the Control record started, and obviously ended up being a very pivotal record in all of our careers.
Jimmy Jam recalls in an interview with Red Bull Music Academy, "The first song we did when we went into the studio was He Doesn't Know I'm Alive. It gave us a chance to see what she could do vocally because the song had a big range on it. There were a lot of high notes at the end. She nailed the vocal on it, and we were really happy with how she sounded. That made us see that there weren't any boundaries with what we could do with her." Janet co-wrote every song on the album except The Pleasure Principle and He Doesn't Know I'm Alive. Taking complete control, Janet was not only involved with the writing on this album, she also co-produced every song on the album. Catherine writes in her book, Janet also played digital keyboards, synthesizers, digital piano, and digital bells. Being involved in every musical decision on Control was in keeping with her more assertive stance. Each song that Janet co-wrote was completely autobiographical and based off her personal experiences.
He gave me his blazer, and I really didn't want to take it. And I said, no, Jimmy, it's okay. And I said, we'll just walk. We'll walk every place we have to go. And my friend and I, we had a class down the street, and we made it there okay. And we were walking back to the hotel, and these guys started flirting with us and saying all these sexual things. And that's how I came up with Nasty.
Janet's high school friend, Melanie, who accompanied her while she was in Minneapolis, is a co-writer on Let's Wait a While. The song was inspired by conversations that Melanie had with her first love when they were teenagers. Melanie and her boyfriend at the time decided to postpone sexual intimacy until they felt the time was right.
Actually, Let's Wait a While was the first lyric I ever wrote.
Wow.
And yeah, it was a true experience. And so I just put the lyric in my drawer, and Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, Janet's producers, actually brought it out because Jimmy was asking me if I heard any lyrics for this ballad he was writing for Janet. He was playing the piano. And I told him about the song, and he's like, oh, finish that with Janet. I said, yeah. Let's do it. And then Janet put her magic on it. So, yeah.
The entire album only took them 2 weeks to make, creating a masterpiece album with 9 hit songs.
No, I went to Minneapolis. I was there for a month and a half. It took us 2 weeks to complete the album, and the rest of the time we just went to the movies, went to the lake, and had a great time. 2 of the nicest guys, the perfectionists in the studio. They know how to play and have fun with it, and at the same time get their work done, and they're excellent at it.
After they finished the album, they played it for Janet's family.
We played the album for all her brothers. Michael wasn't there, but I remember, Marlon and Jackie and the rest of them were there. And I remember we played the album, and there was 2 things I remember. One was when I Think of You played, they said, that's going to be number 1. And we're going, huh? No, man, Nasty, Pleasure Principle. We're thinking of all these other songs. And they were like, no, that When I Think of You, that's the one. That's going to be the number 1. And we were like, really? And of course, they were right about that.
When I Think of You became Janet's first number 1 single. The video for the song featured her nephews, Terrell and TJ. Though her family enjoyed her new sound, there was one song on the album her mother didn't like.
Now, I've heard that your mother was a bit surprised by your performance in Nasty. Now, I'm wondering, what did she really have to say to you about
Well,
this?
actually, it wasn't Nasty. She loves Nasty, and she loves the video. It was Let's Wait a While. Not Let's Wait a While, but Funny How Time Flies. Because by me being the baby of the family, she really couldn't get into the moaning. At the
Found you growing up.
Yeah.
I see.
It was sort of difficult for her.
Not only was Janet publicly declaring independence from her father through the lyrics of Control, but in songs like What Have You Done For Me Lately, she expresses dissatisfaction from her previous marriage, and in a song like Funny How Time Flies, she lets us into her sensual side, which is a topic she will explore on the coming albums. Janet was now in control of her career and her personal life. Control was released February 4, 1986. It birthed a new era for Janet Jackson. She was no longer being told what to do by her father, no longer tied to a toxic spouse, no longer being told what to sing by producers, and no longer being seen as just Michael's little sister. She was now a superstar in her own right. She was calling the shots and was having success on her own terms by doing things her way. Control was Janet's first album to top the U.S. Billboard 200. She became the first female artist to have 5 top 5 hits from one album on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Control also set a record for the longest continuous run of charting singles on the Hot 100 at 65 consecutive weeks. The album has sold over 14 million copies worldwide. In 1987, it was nominated for Album of the Year Grammy Award. The album caused Jam and Lewis to win a Grammy for Producer of the Year. Janet won many awards for the album, and the album broke records. Even her music videos were groundbreaking. Janet even worked with Paula Abdul, who helped choreograph some of the videos for the album. Paula made an appearance in the video for What Have You Done For Me Lately and Nasty. In Catherine's book, she wrote, Michael was present the night Janet premiered her video for Nasty at the house. I feel safe in saying that those few minutes with Michael were the most special time for Janet during her entire Control experience. Janet said in the book that Michael started crying in the middle of the screening. He loved it that much. "Janet," he said, "I'm so proud of you. This is a hit. And it's only the beginning for you," he added. "You haven't reached your peak yet. You haven't climbed to the top of your mountain." Michael's words proved to be true. It was only the beginning for Janet. What is your favorite song off Janet's Control album? Let me know in the comments, and let's be sure to stream Control in honor of its 40th anniversary. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories behind the scenes, more stories behind the songs, and more stories behind the siblings, which is the Jacksons. This page is ran by the Jacksons' 70s and 80s Instagram page. Be sure to follow and leave a message. God bless.